Hey guys, what's up? It's your boy Trix. Today we're going to be doing another live stream, but today instead of doing spring, we are going to be doing the play framework. We're going to see how far we get, but I'm hoping to do one tutorial per day. One tutorial every Sunday. Sorry. I just want to start off by just chatting a little bit as I normally do. So this week I was supposed to be using the Moondrop arias as my my IEM for the week, as I was I wanted to switch between all of my IEMs and get some usage out of my gear, because I always defaulted to just one and always just doing that. So when I was at work I was using my Boses, when I'm at home I'm using just one piece of gear. So I was like, you know what, when I'm out and about going on a walk or something, I'll use my Samsung Galaxy Buds. When I'm working, I'll use my Boses, and then when I'm at home and I just want to listen to music, I'll switch between my IEMs. Now, there was a couple weeks ago, I was live streaming and I talked about how some of my IEMs weren't working correctly and I had to give them a clean. So I gave all of my IEMs clean. 2 of my IEMs are completely fine, but my Moondrop arias are still not okay. They are back to sounding like complete garbage, where okay, that was a bit harsh. Not complete garbage, just there's channel imbalance from one side to the other, so one side sounds a lot louder than the other. And again, I can't be asked to change out the filters again. I don't know how much money I spent on filters for the arias now. It's like every couple of months you have to change the filters, so I think I've maybe spent like half of what the arias are worth just by spending money on filters. And then you got the S12s and the dust that I got, which are like, fair enough, they're considerably more money, but you don't need to change the filters. So and there's IEMs in the price range, in way cheaper. Like, I want to say what are they called? Salnotes X Clinical Zero. There is the Truth X Clinical Zero. There is some KZ IEMs in that price bracket, with basically like all KZ TRN, CCA, QKZ. What else? What else is budget? Some Moondrop IEMs also in that price range. Some blondes, but no one really talks about the blondes anymore. They haven't released anything like, I'm not gonna say not decent, but the last hit they had was the BLO3s, so they haven't really released anything interesting. Yeah, but most of those IEMs that are in that price bracket are severely cheaper than the Moondrop Aria. And then if you're going with on level with the Moondrop Aria, you've got the Truth Air Hexa, you've got the Truth Air X Clinical Zero, which literally encapsulate both sides. Clinical Zero being cheaper, Hexa being a bit more expensive, but both giving you way better sound quality and a better experience than using the Arias. So with that being said, I have stopped using my Arias because I can't be asked to keep changing out the filters on them just so I can get decent sound out of them, when I can just alternate between my S12s and my Dusts completely fine, and all of my other gear completely fine without any issues. It's just my Arias where for some reason one side still has imbalance, even though I have cleaned them thoroughly and have swapped out filters, and then after a little while it just starts happening again. I know it's not my ears, because when I'm listening to other gear they sound completely fine. It's just the Arias. So at this point, also I would say, maybe it was my ears, but now it's not the same side that has imbalance. It's the other side that has imbalance now. So I know it's not just an issue with one particular side, it's just how it's made. And that's not an issue on, I was gonna say it's not an issue on the manufacturers, but it is a manufacturer issue where this is happening. And I don't want to say that it's a bad IEM in any sense, because it does have good imaging, good sound quality, but for things that are coming out right now, it is not worth it. So with that being said, I cannot recommend the Moondrop Aria to anyone buying it currently. I would check out some names, but because I haven't actually listened to them myself, I'm not going to say, oh yeah, blind buy this instead of getting the Arias. and I can't recommend my S12s and Mab Dust because those are significantly more money than the Arias when you're comparing prices. Well, the S12s are like maybe £30 more, but it's still kind of unfair to compare them. So with that, I'm not. I don't think it's fair for me to say, oh yeah, get this, get that, or whatever. But I can say there are better stuff in the price range. Do your own research and figure out what type of sound signature you enjoy and see if there is an IEM that fits that sound signature. The best way I can like recommend someone who's never been into IEMs or like just looking to get their feet wet is look up a bunch of like reviewers on YouTube and see what they say after reviewing the IEM. So the ones that I would look out for, I'm not gonna name names. I'm just gonna say look for reviewers that at least show the frequency response curve, tell you what song they're listening to, what or have tested the IEM on while listening to it. There and at least make their preferences known for what they like or dislike from that track, right? Everybody's taste in music is different, so you might want something that's a bit more bassy, a bit more trebly, or whatever, or something that has more vocal presence, right? So when you're looking at these reviews, don't just blind buy something because this reviewer who has a lot of subscribers has this opinion. Check what they like in music. If the tracks that they like coincide with the things that you like listening to, then go with that, and see what they say about it, and then look at the frequency response curve. If you like how it looks, I know if you haven't used IEMs before, looking at a frequency response curve is kind of intimidating at first, but after you watch a couple videos and see how reviewers talk about it and when they explain how certain things sound while comparing it to a track that they're listening to and what they hear in when listening to that track, makes it a bit easier to digest. I just recommend watching a lot of people. One review. I'll list a couple of reviews that I currently watch. There is. Sorry. There's Critical. I recommend him just because he currently has one of the biggest databases for IEMs and headphones. And right after that, I would recommend Super Reviews, because again, he lets people look at the frequency response graphs for lots of IEMs easily and makes it accessible to lots of people. Same with Bad Guy Good Audio Reviews. If you don't know who that is, you might know him as HBB. Really good guy. Clinical likes more K-pop and Korean hip hop, but he does have like lots of tracks that he has listened to, and his music progression kind of coincides with mine. It's with where I started out with like punk rock, and I've transitioned more into like hip hop, Korean pop, J-pop, jazz, that type of music. I did start off with like rap, rock, punk, pop, English music, and then I just transitioned on. With Superstar, his what was his tracks again? I haven't seen a video of his in a while because he's been streaming a lot, so he does his videos in like an hour long pieces. But Superstar is really good when it comes to reviews because he'll flat out give it like from between 0 and 5 stars where he puts it, and most of the time I don't know what his distribution curve looks like, but at least with Chronicle's distribution curve, everything just follows a normal binomial distribution. With um with Superstar, I don't believe his follows a normal binomial distribution, but he does review quite a lot of things, so that's a good thing to look out for. With Bad Guy Good Audio Reviews, he mainly reviews stuff like his music preferences more coincide with, I want to say, rock, jazz, and hip hop from like early 2000s and back. So like the golden era of like music back, like those tracks. He's really good at identifying good things about those tracks and like good pieces if you are into music from that time period. I'd say look at Bad Guy Good Audio Reviews. For another reviewer I really like is there is I'd recommend Giz Audio, but I know that's kind of a hot topic right now because of some controversy that I've seen with Giz Audio. But I do not recommend the DAC amp reviews, even though I do have two DAC amps. Well, technically I have three. I have my Moondrop Dawn, not Dawn. Is it a Dawn? Yeah, Moondrop Dawn. I've got no. Is that the Click DAC or the Dawn? It's one of them. I've got one of the Moondrop DACs. I've got a FIO K3, and I have the UTWS3. The UTWS3 doesn't really count because it's a Bluetooth adapter for an IEM, but it does have a DAC amp in there, so I'll count it. But when it comes to DAC amps, I am in the camp that it does not affect sound quality at all, and I don't think you should be buying a DAC amp because you want to change the sound quality of an IEM. If you don't like how your IEM sounds, you just don't like how it sounds, and you should just either exchange it, return it for something else, or return it and get something else, right? Or use that money to get something else. DAC amp may have like negligible effect on the music you're listening to, like maybe a tiny bit, but that minuscule bit is no reason to spend like thousands on a DAC amp if you don't have like the money to burn. If you have money to burn, sure, go ahead, buy a DAC amp. But the actual change you get out of it, the benefit. Okay, what's the word? Diminishing returns kick in very fast with DAC amps because the change is so small that you won't notice it. The biggest change you can notice is changing your IEM or headphone or speaker because the actual frequency response coming out of that sounds different. So the biggest change you're going to notice is with the thing actually playing the audio to you. So like the headphone, the IEM, the speaker, because the driver's tuned differently. DAC amp doesn't change how it's tuned, it just changes the delivery of how it gets to you. So I'm in the camp that don't buy a DAC amp purely for the sake of you need a DAC amp so that your music will sound better. It's not going to make your music sound better. Only buy a DAC amp purely because you do not have enough power to buy your headphone or your speaker, or you need to pass it through to something else like a home entertainment system, or like passing it through to a TV, or it's something among those lines, right? So like for instance, for phones you don't need to buy some like extravagant DAC amp. You can just buy a cheap DAC amp if you're going to use them for earbuds or IEMs, because IEMs and earbuds are super efficient. It doesn't mean that a DAC amp won't make the IEM perform a little better, and when I say perform a little better, I don't mean that it will change your response of the sounding of the IEM, but it'll just provide it a bit more it'll provide it a bit more power, right? And if you're using like a planar driver or something, planar drivers require a bit more power, not a lot for IEMs at least, but they do require a bit more power. So providing that power to like a S12 Tangzuization Wu, what else? I think the Clinical Dioko is also a planar. Those IEMs would benefit more from not a very powerful, but a DAC with a bit more power. You don't need to spend a ton on getting a DAC with a good amount of power, and the best way to know is just check how much power your gear requires with like a impedance power calculator, right? You can find a random one online just doing P equals IR and then just checking if the resistance of your IEM, and with like a decent amperage, like maybe like 1 amp or something, would be given enough power by the thing you're using to power it, right? Like, it's not that hard. But where DAC amps come into play, like where they actually are helpful, is when you have like a headphone or a speaker that's a couple hundred ohms, because powering that from like a phone is kind of difficult. Like most IEMs and earbuds are under 32 ohms. Like my DUS, I think, are 32, 36 ohms. That's not a lot of power, but you'll have headphones that are like 120 ohms. I think the HD 600s are 120 ohms, and you need a DAC to play music out of that. Not because it won't play music, it will play music, but it will be very quiet because it doesn't have a lot of power. If you give it enough power, it will be able to play music at a decent sound without you having to crank up the volume on your phone to try hearing something. And so if you're going to get a DAC amp, please do your research. You don't need to buy an expensive one if your gear doesn't require that power. Getting back on track, yeah, I do not recommend Giz Audio's DAC amp reviews, but I do recommend Timmy on Giz Audio's channel if you like similar music to Chronicle, but instead of emphasis on bass, you like emphasis on treble. So, for example, for me, I like the S12s and I like the DUS. Between the two, I like them both, but I prefer the tuning on the S12s. I like the technicalities and the imaging on the DUS, but I love the tuning on the S12s, which is the only reason I'm thinking of getting the Manga Zen's top, because it has very similar tuning to the S12s, but with the bass shelf of the DOS, and it looks great. It gets me excited. But yeah, if you like treble emphasis, then I'd say look at Giz Audio's Timmy's reviews on Giz Audio. If you like bass emphasis, I'd say check out Clinical. Now, this is going to be a bit more of a this is going to be like a hot potato to just chuck in. I do not recommend DMS and Zeus or Joshua Vela, which is going to sound very sus, but it's not anything against the YouTubers, because I think they are amazing YouTubers and I enjoy their content. Purely, I do not recommend DMS, his individual channel, because I think you should just watch the Headphone Show instead. The Headphone Show has more well-rounded reviews, and I feel like with DMS's channel, his channel is more personal to him, so he tailors most. I feel like with his channel, unless you're like a very long-term viewer, you wouldn't understand most of the stuff that he's talking about. But on the Headphone Show, they try to make it more viewer friendly, if that makes sense. It's nothing against him. I enjoy his channel personally. It's just for like someone who's coming into the hobby, I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend the Headphone Show just because the Headphone Show like goes into way more depth and like tries to explain a lot more things than his individual channel does, which is fair enough because the Headphone Show does like videos that are way longer. With Zio specifically, I don't recommend his videos just because most of the things he recommends, he doesn't really like give critical reviews on. He does give like a couple critical reviews once in a while, but not all the time. And sometimes he'll say, "Yeah, these don't sound that great," but then just like chill them out if someone does want it, which is fair enough. Everybody's tastes are different. But if you know that an IEM just looks awkward or has like weird tuning, you should like preference that. Yeah, this IEM is gonna sound funky. If you don't like this, you don't like that. But like what Bad Guy Good Audio reviews does, he does that. He'll do a review where he's like, this is what he doesn't like about this IEM, this is what he likes about this IEM, and that this would be good if you like these types of tracks or these types of songs or these types of bands, which I appreciate because he at least tells you that, oh, if you like these types of things, you might like this, right? Now he doesn't go out of his way to say, oh yeah, just go buy this. He says he doesn't like it personally, and he gives his own view, and then he says who might like it, right? And then he tries to give a comparison to an IEM that some people might have used in the past. The last one that I'm going to recommend is going to be like very out there, but I feel like it should be said. I recommend Sharo. I don't know if that's his name correct, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but I recommend Sharo just because he gets through a lot of stuff very quickly. Lots of his opinions are very, let's say, interesting. But I do recommend his videos. I think his videos are really good. If you're just getting into the hobby, he's very helpful, and he does like explain in depth what he does and doesn't like about an IEM. It's just that because he uses high-end gear, he basically recommends, like in a roundabout way, he hasn't said it, but he basically recommends that some stuff really just isn't good. So just save your money. If you are going to get into IEMs, just save your money and then wait until you can get this type of IEM in this price bracket, which I do agree with. But because audio is subjective and everybody likes different tuning and different sounding IEMs, and they don't all listen to the same tracks, I would say it's a little unfair to say that to someone who hasn't already got experience with IEMs. But if you found Shara's channel, you probably already have experience with IEMs, because like you wouldn't know who Shara is unless you've been like on a audiophile Discord or on the subreddit or something, or unless someone has like out of their way gone and talked about him. But I do think his reviews are very helpful. There's lots of people in the headphones subreddit as well that are very helpful when it comes to figuring out and what an IEM will sound like, or like their impressions, where they'll really leave a review on the type of headphone or IEM they've listened to and what they think, and like the tracks that they listen to, which is really appreciated and really good. But if you're just getting into IEMs, you probably wouldn't know that. I just recommend Shara's stuff because genuinely I think he's doing good by making sure people don't waste their money on crap. And the only thing I would say with Shara is take some of the stuff he says with a pinch of salt. Like, he has a different opinion to everybody, right? Everybody has a different opinion. So if you are going to take what he says into account, at least try to understand what music he likes, what music he doesn't like, and the tracks that he's listening to, and see if your preferences align with him. That's the same with everybody. With all of these reviewers, see what they like, see what they don't like, see what their preferences align with, and what they were listening to while they were reviewing that piece, and see if you share that same impression. It doesn't mean you have to go out and buy the IEM. One of the main things I like about Shara is he tells you do not need to buy an IEM to go and test it out. You can just EQ the current gear you have to that frequency response, and you'll have a good idea of how it will sound. Yes, EQ can't save everything, and it can't do everything, because if you EQ too far in one direction, the driver was tuned in such a way that EQing too far in a given direction will make the driver sound very distorted. So it's a trade-off. If it's EQ'd too far in one direction, it will sound very distorted. But if the target curve that you're trying to hit is kind of close, you can test it out. The maximum you should EQ any given frequency, I would say, is 15 dB. Anything above 15 dB, I'd say you're going to get into distortion territory. But within that 15 dB range, you can test out a ton of IEMs for all along the frequency response curve. So you don't need to buy an IEM to test it out. You just need to know what your current gear sounds like. This mainly just use this with headphones and IEMs. With speakers, it's a lot harder to do. But with headphones and IEMs, figure out what your current frequency response curve is for your headphones or IEMs, and then tune your gear to the IEM or headphone that you're thinking of buying, and see how it will sound. That's one thing I like about Shara that all of the other reviewers don't do, where they won't just take a piece of gear that they currently have and then just tune it to the gear that they are reviewing, right? Because they get sent that gear for free. Most of the time Shara has to buy his own stuff, but it works most of the time if you're using an IEM with the same setup. So like, if it has a planar driver, you want to do it with a planar driver IEM, right? It wouldn't make sense to do that with a dynamic driver, because dynamic driver and the planar driver is going to perform differently. But it is something that people should take into account, that you could just tune your IEM to a specific frequency response curve to get an idea of how it will sound. But yeah, those are my recommendations for people to watch for like figuring out IEMs or headphones that you could get into. Most of them actually all of them I recommended are mainly just IEMs. I know Superstar and Bad Guy Good Audio Reviews do headphones as well. I know Timmy also does headphones, and sometimes Kryn, but most of the time they only do IEMs. Shara is just exclusively IEMs for now. I don't know if he'll get into headphones, but I know he's exclusively IEMs for now. I'm just trying to think. Are there any other reviewers that I would recommend? Headphone Show as well. Headphone Show does some good headphone reviews as well. It's just any reviews with dark hands I just don't bother watching, and I don't recommend anybody watching. What else? Uh, yeah, I can't think of anything else. Cables don't affect sound quality. I should mention that as well. Cables do not affect sound quality. If you want to change out your cable on your IEM or headphone, do it because you want to change out the feel, not because you think it's going to give you some increased sound quality. That's just snake oil. What else? At the end of the day, I just want people to remember to enjoy your gear, right? Like this whole optimization stuff about, oh yeah, you need to buy the best gear for you. Yes, you do not want to spend your money unwisely, and you want to do this. You want to spend your money wisely so that you know you're making the best purchase decision for yourself, right? With that being said, I do not want someone to go into this buying like 5 to 6 IEMs and then thinking, oh, they need to buy another IEM because there's always something better. In that same breath, there's always going to be something better. Like, there's always going to be a better phone, there's always going to be a better speaker, a better laptop, a better GPU, a better PC, a better anything, right? You can use that scenario with everything. So you're not going to go out of your way to buy a new phone every time or a new PC every month or so, right? You shouldn't treat your gear like that either. You should treat it as, I'm going to buy something, I'm going to enjoy my music with it, and then you will keep using it until it breaks or dies. That's how you should see your gear. I wanted to play around with things, right? So I got the Arias, and then I was like, and then as soon as they stopped working for a bit, and I was like, I can't be asked to change out the filters again. I got the Dust because I was like, I want to experience Endgame, and then Planar started coming out. So I was like, okay, I haven't had a Planar IM anymore yet. I'm not going to spend Endgame money. I just want to test out what's in the market. Looked up a couple of reviews, and then figured out, okay, cool. Giz Audio done a video on the S12s, and so did Kryn. Kryn didn't rate them that well. He rated the Timeless a lot higher than the S12s. But Timmy done a similar review, rated the Timeless and the S12s very well, but he still went with the Timeless. I decided to go with the S12s because I liked how the frequency response in the S12s looked compared to the Timeless. Went with the S12s. I prefer the tuning on the S12s than to the Dust, but I still prefer the imaging and the resolution on the Dust, hands down. It's because there's literally just more drivers on the Dust than there are on the S12s. So imaging, soundstage, resolution is going to sound a lot better on the Dust. But the S12s, like, they sound great. Tuning wise, they sound amazing. They fit my target tuning very nicely, and I appreciate that. And they come very close in resolution to the Dust. Not all the way there, but they get very close. It's just the imaging and the soundstage that are kind of let down, and that's mainly because of the driver and maybe the R&D. But for however much I paid for this, like maybe 100 compared to my Dust, I paid like 360. That's insane. So I do recommend, like, if you do have like a couple of IEMs that you're thinking of trying out, get like maybe a neutral one and then EQ up and down to fit the tuning of the other ones, and then buying the one that you think will sound the best. Or if they're cheap enough and you have the money to burn, essentially, try out some IEMs in the budget price category that have different tuning, and figure out what you like and don't like, and then go for something that has similar tuning to the one that you like but in a higher price bracket, and keep going like that, so that when one IEM breaks, you can just switch it out for a better IEM and just upgrade continuously instead of side grading. But the budget market for IEMs is really good right now, and I do recommend dipping your toe into it and seeing if you like anything. Anyway, let's get back into this tutorial. How Play applications work, and shows you how to create a name page that displays a customized hello world greeting. You can use any Java build tool to build a Play project. This tutorial demonstrates SBT and Gradle because they both provide development experience Play is known and loved for, such as auto reloading, clear error messages, and template compilation. The tutorial procedure assumes the use of SPT or Gradle W. We are going to use Gradle W because I cannot be asked to install SPT. I also heard from my senior dev that SPT is kind of funky, so we'll be using Gradle W. But you can also integrate player projects with your favorite IDE. Start your project. Make sure you have the verified the requirements for running a player. Java version SE 8 through SE 11 inclusive. SPT, we recommend the latest version. Could I SDK man install SP2? I'm gonna see if I can SDK man install SPT. For people that haven't used SDK man before, it's a very useful tool for installing different SDK packages and stuff like that. Do I not have? Oh, it's not in the packages. Let me see. SDK man. Install. Oh, I was thinking, why isn't it SDK man? I'm guessing it's just different. Interesting, is it? The current version, but would you like to upgrade this? Cool. You open your terminal, start using SDK man to join our beta channel and simply follow the instructions. Cool. Obtain the appropriate example zip file. We're going to do the Java one because I do not know Scala. Maybe in the future I'll learn Scala, but currently I'm only doing Rust and Java. Let me see where Scala is in the Stack Overflows. Overflow survey. Yeah, we'll look at the 2022 developer survey. Scala's a little higher than Java. That's fair. But as you can see, I'm going to be doing Rust, then Elixir, then ClearJar, and I'm going to keep going down this list. So for my planning of like learning languages, I'll be doing the exorcism roadmap for learning language. Then I'll be it'll probably be best if I do the developer roadmap from roadmap.sh for language, then doing the exorcism exercises, and then doing a project. So currently I'm doing a Rust project because I already done the exorcism stuff, but I do plan to do the roadmap for Rust at the very end after I finish the Rust Rogue tutorial that I'm doing. For Java, I'm doing the roadmap, then I'm going to do exorcism, and then I'm going to do Yeah, just the roadmap and then exorcism, because throughout university I done a ton of projects on Java, so I don't really think I need to do another project. But doing the roadmap and then doing the exorcism track will probably be decent. Then I'll do Elixir. Nah, I'll do Rust. I'll do Rust, sorry, for the roadmap. But I do plan to get through each one. I'm hoping it'll be fun. And I'm hoping you'll enjoy coming along the ride with me. Anyway, so create a project for me. I'm just gonna save this to my docs. I was that file you just saw, Mind the Gaps, was when I was flashing my phone. I did find out the other day you can get some applications working on Android, like ones that need safety net, but it would involve installing Magisk and rooting your phone, which isn't that bad, but the way that Magisk works now is way different to how it was before. So before, when you had Magisk, when you done an OTA update, the Magisk module would just persist. It wouldn't be completely gone from your system. Now, with the way that Magisk works, you can still keep Magisk. It's just that you'd have to download your OTA update package on your phone, extract it on your, so you connect your phone to your laptop or PC or whatever, extract the update image, so you grab your boot.image, I think, then you send that boot.image back to your phone, use Magisk to patch that boot image. Then if you have twerp on your phone or Orange Fox or like a custom recovery on your phone that allows you to flash images on your phone, you can just boot into your recovery, flash your boot image on top of your current operating system, clear cache, I think, clear cache or clear Dalvik, it's one of those two, then boot your phone. Then I think you also need to flash Magisk again, and then when you get into Magisk, it'll just ask you to restart, and then you'll have the new OTA update, right? But because I'm on Lineage and I don't have Orange Fox or Twerp installed, I'd have to connect it to my laptop with the boot image, sideload it onto my phone, flash it, then flash Magisk on top, and then do that. And that just seems very convoluted to do every time my phone will update. So I might just stick with stock, not flash my phone, and just move all of my personal stuff onto the phone I'm getting and just keep this phone for work. Like, it sucks, but there's nothing I can do about it, really. Cool. Okay. Unzip and run the example following the steps in readme.undo. So you can do sbt run, which will start on localhost 9000. Okay, so let's do that. Actually, I wanted to use Gradle, but I'm realizing that the package doesn't have Gradle as well. Which is fantastic. It is fantastic, isn't it? I'm hoping that this is a lot better than when running with Spring, because Spring would take forever to start. I know my laptop isn't that great, but it's got an Intel Core i5 and it's got a GTX 1650, so it's not like old. It should be able to handle it. And I'm running my OS from the SD card, So any like slowdowns you're seeing are specifically because I'm on the Nox. But it shouldn't be slow when processing anything. Uh, uh, you know what, I'm not gonna hold this to it because this is downloading and installing packages. So fair enough. Because what annoyed me on Spring was the delta between your changes would still like make everything restart, right? So the build process will still take way long. Also realizing that my camera is like slowing down as I'm moving. I am going to upgrade my PC eventually. This laptop will go and I will upgrade it. Just gonna take a while. Apologies. Oh yeah, I also tried out Divest OS the other day. Divest was pretty okay. I just think for an operating system like AOSP, I would appreciate if GApps or at least microG was supported out of the box. You know what? Not GApps, microG at least, because when I tried to install some apps, it would rely on Google Play services. But at least if microG was there and Unified NLP was there, it would be fine. But having to try to get that to work myself and then it just still failing was just. So that's why I switched over to Lineage because you can just flash GApps and it will be fine. It's just it still fails in safety net because my bootloader is locked. That's why I think the only one that might be able to survive safety net might be a Google Pixel because you could flash it. Uh, you could unlock the bootloader, flash it, and then relock your bootloader afterwards. So it could pass safety net potentially. But I feel like I saw some stuff online that's like Google's gonna enhance their safety net check, so it's gonna be a lot more difficult to hide um hide the use of a custom ROM on a device. So it might just kill the custom ROM industry. It won't like kill it completely because people still want to get their gear working way past the way past the end of life of a device. Like I'm still gonna use this. Like I still gotta use this until my next phone comes in. So, and I'm still gonna use this on the side of my current phone. Yeah. I'm just gonna use that as my work phone. There's nothing wrong with using it with no safety net check. It's just that some apps like stupidly need it. Like the other day, I was like, okay, I'm gonna read some light novels. Someone explained to me why Bookwalker, a an app to read manga and light novels, needs safety net, but my banks don't. And that's the only thing that was annoying to me. So some apps that like fair enough, they do require safety net. Like some banking apps, some apps that relate to financial services that I use do not work. And I was like, fair enough, I need to get a new phone because I need to be able to manage my finances from a mobile device. I cannot be opening up a browser to do this every single time, right? Like that's going to get very annoying and very fast. But then you got Bookwalker that won't even let me use the app because I don't pass the safety net check. Which is just stupid. Like Amazon doesn't even fail on safety net. Like the only one I think that did detect that I had safety net, like this, that I wasn't passing safety net was WhatsApp, but it still let me in. Like it still let me do everything. The other ones and the other apps I'm using, like I'm using like maybe 100 apps. 4 of them detected that I didn't pass safety net, and 3 of them just refused to work. The one that's still working that wouldn't pass safety net is WhatsApp, and it was like, oh, we don't guarantee support for for custom ROMs, and I was like, fair enough, but it still let me use it. And then 3 apps were just like, fair enough, doesn't work. But one of those apps was Bookwalker, and I was like, well, I can't do anything about that. Like, I should have gone with Kobo. Like, fair enough, I should have gone with Kobo instead of buying books on Bookwalker. It's just that Bookwalker has a lot more sales than Kobo, so I took the L on that. But yeah, it was just annoying. Anyway, server started. Use enter the stop and go back to the console. Cool. So if I go to localhost. Let's see how it looks. It'll load eventually. Okay. When you run the tutorial application, it displays web pages with the same content and instruction contained here in the documentation. The tutorial includes a deliberate mistake in having documentation application pages open in different types of browsers that allow you to consult documentation for a fix when you encounter the error. Introduction to Play. As illustrated below, Play is a full stack framework with all of the components you need to build a web application or a REST service, including an integrated HTTP server. Interesting. Unable to load cache item. Let me. Interesting. That output is very nice though. It kind of reminds me of Django, where it gives you like output that something's been broken, but it's very nice that it actually gives you feedback. Nice. Anyway, you need to build a web application or a REST service, including an integrated HTTP server, form handling, cross-site request forgery, CSRF token. You'll probably know what that is if you've done Django before. Protection, a powerful routing mechanism, I18N support, and more. Play integrates with many object-related mappings or layers. It supports Anorm, eBean, Slick, and JPA out of the box. JPA is used in Spring. You guys probably saw me using it earlier. But many customers use NoSQL, other ORMs, or even access data from a REST service. This asynchronous HTTP and this async HTTP client is going to be interesting. Play APIs are available in both Java and Scala. The framework uses Akka and Akka HTTP under the hood. This endows Play applications with a stateless, non-blocking, event-driven architecture that provides horizontal and vertical scalability and uses resources more efficiently. To explain horizontal and vertical scalability is that... Okay, how do I explain this? Horizontal scaling is the only way to handle more data is by throwing more machines at it, right? Horizontal scaling is the only way to handle more data is to beef up the thing that you're running, beef up the system that you're running the computation on, right? So most of the time you'll see lots of places go with horizontal scaling, because horizontal scaling is a lot easier than, oh, I need to swap out or chuck more RAM, CPU, GPU, hard drives at something, because, well, you could just use that to build another machine, and now you have 2 machines separating the workload out instead of 1 machine that could fail, right? You'd rather have multiple machines, because instead of having 1 point of failure, you will now have some type of redundancy. Yes, there are now multiple points of failure where like multiple machines could go down, but it's still redundant because 7 machines could go down. But if you've got 8 machines in total, you still got 1 machine running. Instead of, oh, you're doing all that computation on 1 machine. If that 1 machine goes down, you're fucked. Play projects contain Scala components, but because Play has a Java API, Java developers do not need to learn Scala to use Play successfully. Thank you. Here are just a few reasons developers love using Play framework. Its MVC architecture is familiar and easy to learn. direct support of common web development tasks, and hot reloading saves precious development time. A large active community promotes knowledge sharing. Apologies, I had a large lunch today. 12 templates render pages. The 12 template language is easy to learn, requires no special editor, provides type safety, is compiled so that errors display in the browser. That's very nice. To learn more about Play's benefits, see Play's introduction and philosophy. Now let's dive into what a Play application looks like. The tutorial is implemented as a simple Play application that we can examine to start learning about Play. Let's first look at what happens at runtime. When you enter the local hosting browser, the browser requests the root URI from the HTTP server using GET method. Play internal HTTP server receives a request. Play resolves the request using the routes file, which maps URLs to controller action methods. The action method renders the index page using 12 templates. At the HTTP server returns a response to the HTML page. At a high level, the flow looks something like this. So you make a request. HTTP server receives the request. Use the router to find the action. Execute the action. Action calls template to render and then returns that result to you. Next, let's look at the tutorial project to locate the implementation for the root files that maps the request to the controller method, the controller action method that defines how to handle a request to the root URI, the tutorial template that the action method calls to render the HTML markup. Follow these steps to drill down into the source files. In the following procedures for Windows shells, use slash in place of the use backslash instead of the / path names. No need to change URL path names though. A good way of thinking about that is I remember watching a Chris Titus video where he basically explains that Windows uses backslash because it's backwards thinking. Linux uses / because it's forwards thinking. It's like a very bad analogy, but it's a good way to remember it, that on Windows you have backslashes, backwards thinking. Linux, / forward thinking. Let's cd into app. Yeah. Cd into controllers. Cat and views, which will be familiar to those experienced with the multi controller architecture. My life working with Flutter for a bit. Since the simple project does not need an external data repository, it does not contain a models directory, but this is where you would add it. Yeah, they have, so the way to think about this is you'd either have models or services, right? So models you would use to map data that you store locally. Services you use to map data that you would get externally. The public subdirectory contains directories for images, JavaScript, and style sheets, just like web development. The conf directory contains application configuration. For details on the rest of the project structure, see anatomy of a Play application. To locate the controller action method, open the home controller. I'm just going to cut the home controller. There we go. File with your favorite text editor. The home controller class includes the index action method that's shown below. This is a very simple application method that generates a HTML page from the index.scala.html. Nice. That's this bit. Okay, views.html. To help read the maps to view the route that maps the browser request to the controller method, open the conf routes file. A route consists of a HTTP method, a path, and an action. This control over the URL schema makes it easy to design a clean and human readable. Your app is ready. View. Okay. Index.render. Following line maps a get URL request from the root URL to the index action in home controller. Open the text editor, the main directive in this file calls the main template with the string welcome to play to generate a page. You can open app Scala views main.scala.html to see how a string parameter sets this page. With this overview, you are ready to add a hello world greeting. I think I need to change that. Okay, views. HTML.index. Interesting. Implementing Hello World. To see how simple it is to work with Play, let's add a customized Hello World greeting to this tutorial. The main steps include create the Hello World page, add an action method, define a route, customizing the greeting. Create the Hello World page. Follow the instruction below to add a new Hello World page to this project. With any text editor, create a file name and save it to app views directory of this project. Add in the following contents to the file. Okay, so if I go up, scene to views, and then touch hello.scala.html. Cool. And then I can just copy this and then cool. This 12 HTML markup accomplishes the following. The @ sign tells the template engine to interpret what follows. In this case, @main hello assert finds calls the main template main.scala.html and passes it the page title hello. You can ignore the assert find argument for the time being. The content section contains the hello world greeting. The main template will insert this into the body of the page. Now we are ready to add an action method that will run the new page. Open home controller. And then you just grab this. There. There. Okay, then I'm pretty sure I need to change this to views.html.hello. Alright. Oh, hang on. I could change it to index, and then here I can just change this to hello. I didn't see the import views.html at all. Define a route. To define a route for the new hello pages, open the conf cd into conf and then vi into routes and add that line. There we go. When you add a route to the routes file, Play's routes compiler will automatically generate a route to a class that calls that action using an instance of your controller. For more information, see the routing documentation. By default, the controller instances are created using dependency injection. See the docs for Java and Scala. You're now ready to test the new page. If you stop the application for some reason, restart it with spt run. Just need it to load up. Oh, whoops. So, if I go to 9000/hello. I don't know how this is gonna act. This is Spring Boot, but it should be similar. Oh, it's literally because of the drivers I'm using. What version of playing on? What version of JDK am I running? Yeah, I'm on version 19. That's so weird. I'll still try hacking on it. Like, it's fine. Just a very weird exception. What's the stack trace look like here? Interesting. An unnamed module. Anyway. As final part of this tutorial will modify the hello page to accept a HTTP request parameter. Steps to include a deliberate mistake to demonstrate how play provides useful feedback to customer hello while greeting. Follow the instruction below. So I just drop this into it. There we are. SBT clean. SBT build. SBT run. I'm just gonna let it do its thing for like a couple seconds. So if I do hello, okay, so if I do, what is it? HTTP. Let's see how that does. I think it's gonna throw a legal exception in. Yeah. Play. What version of play is this? 2.8.19. IO to low dash item. So it's pretty much because Play isn't updated for Java 19 yet. Okay. That's fair. As these action methods, routes, tool template, and input parameters to create a customized hello world greeting. You experience how template compilation makes it easier to identify and fix problems, and how auto reloading saves time. This was just a simple example to get you started. Let's now see your other official examples and tutorials from the community. Okay. So, for a first one, wasn't the best, obviously, but I think in comparison to Spring, a lot better. At least with Spring, things were running right, but with Play, there is more feedback. It's sort of just like an error screen, and it's like the exception doesn't really tell you what's going on. At least Play tells you what the exception is, and like kind of tells you. Like I wouldn't have known that just because I'm using a more up to date version than Play supports. With this didn't throw an error, and I was like, okay, cool. What does this error mean? Still think it's pretty good. I am gonna continue the tutorials, and if this does become like a proper issue where lots of the tutorials just won't run because I'm using Java 19, I will downgrade to Java 17. I won't downgrade all the way to Java 11 because I feel like that's kind of ridiculous downgrading all the way, downgrading like 8 versions back, but I would downgrade to Java 17 if I need to. Actually, no, they do. Java releases in like odd numbers after Java 9, right? So I mean, after Java 9, because it went Java 8, then Java 9, then Java 11, 13, 15, 17, 19. So I'll downgrade to Java 17. It's only been 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19. So it's only 2 back. Like, it's not that bad. Yeah, 1 back, sorry, actually. 2 if I go to 13, and then 3 if I go to 11. But yeah, I'll continue them. And let me just remove this one from here. So the next one I'm doing is Arco Actors Quick Start with Java. Hopefully it goes a bit better. If it does become an issue where things just won't load with cache because I'm using a more up-to-date version than the one that Play supports, I will downgrade. But other than that, thanks for watching, like, subscribe, enjoy the rest of your day, and peace.